You are listening to the Makers Church podcast. For more information about our community, please visit makerschurch.org.
Hey, Makers Church, Pastor Derrick here. Thanks so much for joining us online this Sunday. It's a great opportunity to take a moment and fill you in on everything that's been changing around here at Makers Church. I'm sitting here with Pastor Glenn from North Park Baptist, and we can't wait to tell you what God has been up to in orchestrating really a miracle that is in the making. And so Pastor Glenn, tell us just a little bit about yourself and about North Park Baptist, and then we're going to share the story of how we've come together and what we're up to. A little bit of grace. Pastor Glenn has been sick.
I'm talking like a frog.
And he sounds like a frog, but he's a beautiful frog. And so we're going to hope that your voice keeps...
I've got this cough that half the city has right now. But I'm going to be okay.
Awesome.
So my name is Glenn, and I've been the pastor of North Park Baptist Church for about 20 years now. North Park Baptist Church is it's coming up on 100 years old. It's been around for a long time. Now the neat thing about North Park Baptist, when you look at its history, and this is really cool because Derrick is a fireman, is the first church that they built burnt to the ground. It just burnt absolute to the ground, and so they decided that when they built the replacement church, this is back in the 30s, that they were going to build it out of all concrete. So if it did burn, it wouldn't burn much. And so it is a massive concrete building. It has its advantages and disadvantages, but it's been there through when the PSA flight crashed in North Park back in the late 70s. That was the place where the firefighters came and the first responders came to rest. I didn't know where they took the people that were hurt, but that was where the people came to rest. So it's got an incredible history of reaching out to North Park. Now, when I got there 20 years ago, it was primarily a small, older group of people. Most of the people were white, and they were in their 70s and 80s. There was about 60 of them. And I was young like you guys are now, and we came in and we wanted to reach the neighborhood of North Park. Now, North Park was quite a bit different then than it is now. And back then it was very multi-ethnic. And we looked around and there's a bunch of white people there, old white people. And so we said, this is not good. And so I had a friend of mine in seminary, Pastor Rob, African-American, and so I recruited him to come help me make this church a church that was multi-ethnic. And we prayed for the tongues of the nations to come in. One thing that we did do, we were big believers in prayer, we walked on every street. We had a little map, and every day we would walk down the streets of North Park and pray that these people would come to know Jesus and be saved. And it was so exciting because we literally, all of 92104, we prayed over every house. And when we prayed that week, somebody whose house that we prayed over came to the church, and a lot of times they didn't even know why they came.
Wow.
One thing was that we had this one lady by the fire. She lived right next to the fire department there. She showed up. We prayed at 3. She showed up and knocked at the door at 4 and goes, "Why am I here?"
Wow.
And that woman, we took her under our wing, and she started coming to church, fell in love with Jesus, and was one of our leaders for many years. It was incredible. So there's many stories like that.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that we do pray now is that another thing is that we do now have a very multi-ethnic congregation. Beautiful. When we do communion, one Sunday a few years ago, if somebody had a language that they spoke that was different than English, if they would come and say, "This is my body," when we gave out the communion elements, and we had 12 different languages that were spoken there. And so now, if you were to look at our demographic, white people like myself are in the minority, and it's a beautiful blend. It's a beautiful blend of ethnicities. And also, it's a beautiful blend of socioeconomic people. We have people that are both anywhere from homeless people to college professors. And so it's an incredible mix in between. One thing, however, though, is that, as Derrick has said, we've gotten older. through the years, and North Park has changed, and so now we have become the old people that we were coming in to meet 20 years ago. And you guys are able to reach the new demographic of North Park, and that's what excites us so much, is that you can reach people that we can't.
Yeah, absolutely. Such a cool story, and there's so many more stories to be heard as we partner together. I just wanted to take some time during this video to really tell the bigger story of how we even connected.
That's right.
And it's unlike anything I've ever been a part of and experienced. So I just am so excited to share this with you. So let's just back up a little bit of how we got here, why we're sitting here talking to a video camera, and we're with you in your living room now or wherever you might be watching this. We, as Makers Church, if you've been with us for a while, you know that we've just migrated all over the city. We've been traveling around like the Tabernacle, set up, tear down, and so many different venues. And we've had so many different places to call home. And so we thought the wise thing to do in our last move was to go find a home that would be that would offer some stability and some consistency. And so we found a junior high, a place where we thought this place is always going to be here. They don't do anything on the weekends. It would be great. And so we went to Dana Middle School for a year and a half, and it was great for us for that season, and so many of you found us while we were there, and God was very great to us in that season. But that all got disrupted right around Thanksgiving, where they told us that they are going to do some construction projects that are going to really displace us for quite some time. In addition to that, our usage agreement had changed, to where we were going to have to be doing a lot more gatherings outside, which is why we're actually doing online church this weekend. We were supposed to have our last gathering at Dana Middle School this weekend, but with the forecast of rain, we decided to cancel it and do this. So there's kind of some context for why we started looking for a new home in the first place. When we found out that we would be displaced from Dana, well, one, we were frustrated. I was frustrated because I felt like I had to put my real estate agent hat back on and go spend a bunch of energy doing not so fun stuff. And we know the landscape of buildings that work for our need, and there are none. And so when we started looking around, we thought maybe this challenge is really an opportunity that God is presenting to us. And so myself and the pastoral team and our staff, we went to God with it. We thought that God had to lead us in this next move in really miraculous ways. And all of a sudden, all of these different things started happening. These opportunities started coming up that were unlikely. Other churches that opened their doors to us, and other places that we had never thought of going before. And so God was started to write kind of a new story on our hearts. And while it was incredible to see the hospitality and generosity of others, none of the buildings actually really worked that great for our needs. And so we were trying to make it work, and we would have made anything work because we were looking for that. But one of the things that happened is all of these opportunities were in North Park, back in the place where we began as a church, and in the place where we most recently were before going to Dana Middle School, and we felt like a sense of calling back to the neighborhood. But we didn't want to quite say it. We weren't really quite sure because nothing was really quite lining up. And one day, Laurel and I and the kids, we went to the UPS store on the corner of University and Bancroft, and we dropped something off at the UPS store, and we came around the corner right in front of North Park Baptist Church. And something in me just made myself tell Laurel, stop. And there was a spot right in front of the church, and I had no idea what I was doing there.
Now, I'm going to interrupt you real quick.
Yeah.
You wouldn't believe how many people say the same thing.
Wow.
We pray, we have a lot of prayer meetings that we go in. Every meeting we say, God, draw people here from the north, the south, the east, and the west. And we have story after story of people that were driving by, and all of a sudden they just sensed that God was saying they needed to come in the church. And this isn't on Sundays. This is all during the week. So you aren't alone when you said, God stopped me and brought me in.
Well, that's exactly what happened. And I stood in front of the church, and I've been by that church a million times. We live in the area, and I've always wondered, what's in this church? What's in this building? Who is this church? And but I've never took the time to find out, and I thought maybe they'd be willing to rent to us. And so I just looked at the marquee out front, and it said, hurting people loved here, and it just resonated with me so much. And I saw a phone number, called the phone number, nobody answered, and then I saw a little sign that pointed to the office door. And I went and knocked on the door, and somebody answered. And Janet answered the door, and I was kind of caught off guard. I didn't expect anyone to be there. And I just said, hey, I'm a homeless pastor with a homeless church, and we're looking for a place to rent, wondering if you do that at all.
Now, I'm laughing here because it's almost a weekly basis a church approaches us and wants to rent space. And we have a number of different little churches in our building. But I've instructed Janet, who's our office administrator, anybody that does that, just say no. Just say no. We love you, but we don't have room for you.
Right.
And so she should have said no. In fact, we were having a staff meeting, and she disappeared to answer the door, and she's gone. And we're thinking, well, did she get waylaid, or what? Do we need to go down there? So what was going on? So you tell them.
Yeah. She said no, but then she welcomed me in.
Which is unusual. That is absolutely unusual.
And I was awestruck. I walked in and I saw this really beautiful auditorium, sanctuary, and I just thought,
it's not that beautiful.
It's really cool. It's vintage cool.
It's vintage, that's right. It's classic.
And I just thought, this is neat. And she kind of just told me a little bit of the story of North Park Baptist. And because she'd already said no, I didn't want to take too much more of her time. And so I just politely thanked her and just told her, thanks for your time. And I left. And I got in the car, and my wife was in the car waiting. The baby was screaming. It was a total mess. But I ended up pulling up North Park Baptist website. I just was curious. I wanted to know more. And I navigated through the website. And
easy.
It's not easy. But I found a message that you had written. And I just felt this deep connection with you just by reading the words you wrote. And I just thought, that seems like a sweet soul and a pastor among pastors. And God bless them in their ministry.
Our mascot is an upside-down stuffed sheep, because a sheep, if it gets upside down, can't get it back on its feet by itself. It needs help. And so we are there to help people get back on their feet.
I love it. I love it. And that just, it resonated with me, but I just thought, bless them. And I really turned the phone off, and I never thought about North Park Baptist again.
And Janet came upstairs to our staff meeting, and I said, what happened? Somebody wanted to come in. I said, you'd say no? Yes. I said no. I said, fine. So we were done.
Done deal.
Done deal.
Couple weeks go by, and a good buddy of mine emails me a cyber meeting with a new friend. And this guy had just moved to town from Cincinnati and had met one of my friends, and he was telling him about Maker's Church, and he said, hey, he wants to know more, would you be willing to get together? And so they actually came out to our Christmas party. I met him and his wife, and so we circled back after the Christmas party, and we ended up getting together just for a quick chat. He came over to the house, the baby was screaming. Once again, kids are crawling around, doing their thing, and we had a quick, very interrupted chat, get to know you. And he had told me he lives in North Park. And I said, well, that's neat. I think our church is going to end up back in North Park. There's a couple opportunities that are before us. We're trying to make them work. They're not really great in terms of fitting us and all that, but we're working on it, so we might be back in your neighborhood. And just out of nowhere, he says, I kind of saw his wheels turning a bit, and he said, do you know Pastor Glenn at North Park Baptist Church? And I thought, I don't know Pastor Glenn at North Park Baptist Church, but that's crazy you would say that, because I just knocked on their door 2 weeks ago, and they said no. And he said, well, you should meet Pastor Glenn, and I'm going to connect you guys. And so here's this guy who just moved to town from Cincinnati. Doesn't know anyone, but he knows you.
And let me tell you kind of how that came about. So every Thanksgiving, we put on a Thanksgiving dinner for the less fortunate. So it's kind of like what we do is people cook, and then we bring in the food, and then we go out and we try to get in as many homeless people and hurting people, people that don't have family, to get in there, and it's a great time. It's a wonderful time. And so James, the fellow that you met, he knocked on the door. Now, he's coming from Cincinnati, from this monstrous church. This church was, I think they have 38,000 people. Wow. Crossroads, it's huge. It's the fastest growing church in the country. But he says, we normally give food at Thanksgiving to people. Do you have some people we can give the food to? And I said, we've got a dinner. And so he was going to bring us food. But in the talking with him, it was so neat because he he was using us as an example for people that are out there that didn't have a church to do something, what they could do for Thanksgiving. And so he took pictures of him bringing the food, us preparing the food. We took pictures of the actual dinner, and it was a great collaboration between him and us. And he was sending pictures back to their, I was kind of thinking, well, we were a little bitty church, and they're sending it back to this 38,000. Wow. But we're doing something right. We're doing something right. So anyway, then it was done. It was like after... I kept giving him, texting him pictures, but then after Thanksgiving was over, it was over, and I hadn't talked to him since. Yeah. And so it wasn't like we were talking all the time.
So he just says, well, I'm going to connect you. And I just thought, how funny that I've been in North Park, South Park for years. You just moved here a couple weeks ago, and you're making this connection. And so he emails us, does a cyber connection again. And I'm thinking, especially if this guy knows we're in the need of a building, he's not going to write me back. And you wrote me back. And we set up a meeting for the following week, and we were supposed to meet at 1 p.m. And I woke up that morning with an email from you asking if we needed a place to meet the following Sunday, which was the Sunday before Christmas. And we had actually not needed a place to meet because we were back inside at Dana. And so I thanked you, and I said, that's so kind for you to think of us, but we don't have a need. Now, I don't know if you know this part of the story, but I didn't fully finished reading your email, and I thought if you knew we needed a building, that you'd cancel our meeting. And so I said, no, we don't need a building, let's just meet. I went back and read your thing later, and you said, I have a wild idea. So then I wrote you back again, I said, I love wild ideas.
He did, which got my attention.
Yeah, I said, I love wild ideas, I can't wait to meet.
Okay, so here's my agony and struggle in all this. So James, we did the introduction, and so we were going to meet, and so I emailed, it was all three of us on the email, but I secretly emailed James back, and I go, what am I walking into? I want to know what I'm walking into. And he says, well, you know, they're reaching people that you aren't able to reach, and they need a building. And then he told me, he says, the last I heard, they met outside. And so in my mind, I'm sitting there going, here's this church that is having to meet outside because they lost their building. And then, and this is the week before Christmas. And so I'm sitting there thinking, okay, there's no room left at the inn. This poor church is like Mary and Joseph wandering around. It's cold. It was cold. It was getting cold. It was rainy. And I'm sitting there going, am I going to let this poor church be out in the cold and rain like Mary and Joseph were? And I'm going, and so first of all, I go, it's too messy. We can't do it. So my wild idea was, well, we're going to invite you guys to come to church, and we're going to combine the services. I really didn't know how big you were at the time, but I knew it was big. And so then I'm sitting there. I mean, this was this internal struggle. And so finally I said, okay, God, I'm going to do this. And so that's where I kind of caved, and I said, okay, do you need a place to stay? And my wild idea was, let's join up. Now, incidentally, all my people were sick. What I've got now, they had then, and all my worship leaders, all these people were sick, and we were thinking, we're going to be singing a cappella on Christmas. I'm thinking, well, if you need a place to stay and you've got the worship team, wouldn't that be great to combine? But it turns out you didn't. So.
We didn't, but I loved the wild idea, and that was really the impetus. That was the kind of the big event that cascaded into us sitting here now. Just to see your heart and your willingness to offer your home that you don't normally offer to we had never met.
Never met.
And so to just see that inside of you, and we got together, and we just had a lovely time sharing stories about what God has done and how He's brought us into ministry and what's currently going on in ministry. And it was really amazing to see how aligned we are.
It's shocking. It was shocking. He even knew what the word oikos meant. So that, I mean, this is your extended family. And so I got goosebumps right now. We have such a similar vision to Makers. It's just amazing. It really is. It's awesome.
And so, you know, for those of you watching, if you've been at Makers Church, you know that there are certain things that we care deeply about that we've been unable to figure out. We've grown in certain arenas in our journey together, but one thing we really, really care a lot about is being diverse in all sorts of ways, ethnically, socioeconomically, age, all of that. But we're pretty young and we're pretty white as a church, and so to hear of your demographic being multi-ethnic and having some wise folks around, I just thought, we have something to give, to offer each other in this. But I had no idea what could happen, but the idea of a joint gathering, if you were willing to do it on Christmas, we left that meeting pondering what would it look like in the new year. This
is one of those tantalizing things that you get this, you never ever get a song in your head and you can't get rid of it. Well, this is I don't know, it's called a song worm or something like that. This is like a ministry worm. It's like, oh my goodness, look what their passion is. We have a real passion for the least of these. That's one of the things that we really, like we said, we have hurting people up here. And because of that, we've got some hurting people and messy people in our church.
As do we. As do we.
You haven't met us yet. But anyway, it's a neat thing to see your passion, and not just yours, but your team's passion as far as, and I got on your website, we were watching some of your videos, and I'm going, that is exactly what our heartbeat is. That is our heartbeat. And it was so fun. It was so fun, yeah.
So we met that Tuesday, and then we decided to get together again to just figure out what could happen. What could we do?
And you brought your team then.
And I brought Mark and Shalice. And we had another great meeting.
Mark and Shalish and Derrick, they could not be more respectful to us, more gracious to us, more kind to us, more loving to us. I kept telling my people that hadn't met you guys, I said, this is kind of like a dating, you know, and I said, I've met these people. If you meet these people, you'll love them. They are wonderful. They couldn't be better.
Wow, that's too kind.
But it's true.
We hope it's true.
It's true. It's true.
But so we just started just dreaming together.
Yes.
What could be? We're not making any commitment to this point, but what could this be? What is the Lord doing? And there were just too many divine intersections along the way.
There are so many connections, personal. We know a lot of people that are in Makers, and it turns out you guys know people that are in our church. It's really neat when you're talking like this and you don't know each other, that you have friends that know you, and they can verify, oh yeah, they're quality people. And the same thing with us. And so that was really, it's just, there's too many things like that that are really neat that are coming together.
Yeah, it's so cool. And so between then and now, and this has all happened so fast, and it's just been this crazy thing, but we had this real physical need, which is a space to gather in beginning in January. And of course, the building itself, it fits us, it works great for us and all of those things. But way beyond a building and a roof over our heads is this collaborative potential that's before us. So just what is the big dream? I mean, what could happen?
Well,
what are some things?
The thing, as we've met, and I know some of these people watching, this is the first time they're hearing this, but as we talk, the dream gets bigger and bigger and bigger. You know, first of all, I didn't want you guys out in the cold. But then we're talking about, you know, we have the people, the multi-ethnic, we know how to do messy ministry. But you've got the energy, the vision, the youth, the things that we once were but aren't anymore. But it is such a great blend. Now, I've been reading books on this, on blending things like this. Blending two cultures like this is like blending a family. I think you've used that thing where you got a blended family. Will the kids like each other? That kind of a thing. When you've got such different cultures like we do, it's going to be hard at the beginning, but it's the most beautiful ending. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
So that's the bigger picture for us is right now is that we're going to come together from now till Easter and see how that fits. And so far, everything that we've tried to look at logistically has been actually pretty easy. Worship teams and stuff like that. By the way, when you see the word Baptist, we're not your grandparents' Baptist church. We rock out. Our music is very, it's I don't know how to describe it. It's a combination of gospel and it's a combination of contemporary worship. So it is loud and it is rocking.
That's
and
awesome.
So it's not like you're going to go in and think, oh, we're going to be in this staid Baptist. That is not us. We've had people from out of town come in. They see the word Baptist. They come in and they think they're going to a Baptist church like somewhere back east. They're going, what is this? I mean, people are screaming, shouting. We also have a Haitian church, a Hispanic church, Thai church, all these things. And they have their own form of worship. Like the Haitians, they love to dance in the aisles. It's awesome.
That's so anyway, cool. Yeah, I love it.
So don't think that when you hear the word Baptist, like, oh, no.
Yeah. So I think the big idea is that we get to learn from each other and really create something new as we come together. And so there's a lot of questions and there's a lot of things floating around, I'm sure in your own head and in your own heart, and there's anytime there's change, there's worry, there's concern. We're worried and concerned.
Of course you are. You hadn't met us. It's like a blind date. Oh.
So we're going to go on this major blind date on January 13th.
It is going to be so exciting. My people are scared and they're excited at the same time. So it's like going on a blind date. First date, what's that going to be like?
Yeah.
You know, it is going to be, I think the combination here of our vision is instead of 1 + 1 = 2, it's 1 + 1 = 3 or more.
Yeah.
And there's a synergy here that we're looking at. Trust me, we have opportunities over the past to do this. We've never, ever even given it a second thought. But with you guys, we're able to see you guys online. And what we see, we love. So don't think we're going to be trying to say you got to change this or change that. That is just not in our heart. We think that is awesome. What you guys are doing, your leadership team, we couldn't be more impressed. Could not be more impressed.
And I just got to say, I have never felt more affirmed in my calling as a pastor, in my calling as a leader, than by you. In this short amount of time that we've even known each other.
This guy's got some intangible leadership skills that are just so impressive. It's and his integrity. He had me over to his house, and I've met his kids. I haven't met.
You have not met my wife yet, which is crazy.
I know we've got people that have been out of town, like some of you have been out of town over the holidays, and so you guys left and everything was one way, and you're coming back and you're going on a blind date. It's like, oh my goodness, what happened?
Yeah.
So it's exciting.
It's exhilarating.
It is. Our people, and I'm sure your people are so excited about, and nervous about what this could be.
Right.
Because they sense God in it. It isn't just like this is some two corporations that are looking to merge or something like that.
Right.
They're thinking, man, this is God doing some stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's bigger than we know.
Here's another thing. When we got together on, when you had me over at your house, my worship leader is named Mark. Your worship leader's name's Mark. Yours is a C, mine is Mark with a K. But you had mentioned you were going to Holy Trinity Brompton, or you were there last summer, to study Alpha and their leadership. Well, my Mark came from Holy Trinity Brompton years ago. He was actually the worship leader of one of their worship teams at Holy Trinity Brompton. So there's all these weird connections that are just, oh my goodness.
Absolutely. And so there's a lot of, I think, questions. What will it look like? We don't know. But what we know is that Maker's Church will never be the same again.
Oh, no.
And that North Park Baptist Church will never be the same. In the most positive of ways. That we are going to come together and create something new. That God is doing something new in us. And I love the passage, I believe it's Isaiah 43. It says, forget the former things. I'm doing a new thing. And I love that passage. And there's so many former things that are to be fond memories that God has done in our past. But He doesn't want to dwell on us and hold on to those things because of our fear of change or our fear of the unknown. But God is leading us into something new. And I believe He's doing that together. And so I think that there's probably a lot of questions, concerns. I think we can address some of them now. So for whatever reason, I love you guys. You're hilarious. We can jump to all sorts of conclusions and perceive things in really different ways. And we know that it's all based on limited information and all of that. But the big question from our folks so far is, am I going anywhere? Am I stepping down? Is our staff changing or leading?
And the answer is no.
Absolutely not. So the goal is that we bring what Maker's Church is doing into North Park Baptist, and North Park Baptist brings what they're doing into Maker's Church. And that we experiment. We test out, we date what the potential long-term future can look like, right? And we don't know. We know that God is orchestrating something, that God is doing something so significant and so much bigger than we can even conjure up on our own heads right now. And so the goal, the big long-term thing, is to do this long-term, to figure this out. But we're going to see how it goes.
Right.
and anything could happen.
How I've put it to my people is we're going to go start dating on the 13th, and we're going to go to Easter, and we're going to see how it goes. And so if you guys come in and you don't like a thing that you're seeing, you got a way out. You guys can go back to the middle school at Easter, and the same with my people. But of course, our hearts, we're on our knees praying, God, we want to do what you want us to do. Show us what's going on here.
Absolutely.
And so, again, it's I couldn't be more excited.
Yeah. So here we are. We are stepping into the unknown, and we're excited, and we're exhilarated. And we are, like Pastor Glenn said, we are together on our knees praying that God would just continue to unfold before us what He's up to.
Speaking of prayer, we have sister churches here in town, and one of them is out by Helix High School. It was Windsor Hills Baptist Church, very similar to our church. I meet with these pastors every month. And they had a young church plant, Southern Baptist Church plant coming in, and they did what we're talking about doing. And it has turned out spectacularly well, incredibly well. Wow. And so but here's the deal. So their pastor comes into our church unannounced. He was, once again, driving by. Wow. God told me to come. And so this is the senior, older pastor, and a good friend of mine, and he comes in and he looks in our sanctuary. We've got a balcony we never use except for weddings and stuff like that. And he says, last week I sat on the back row of my church and I started weeping because of how God had brought our two groups together and how well it was working. And then he paused and he lifted his hands and he prayed. He says, God, let something like that happen here.
Wow.
And then he says, fill the balcony.
Wow.
And then he left.
Wow.
Of course, I didn't give it a second thought.
Oh, my goodness.
But who knows what could happen? I'm not saying, I'm hesitant to play the God card because it limits discussion. But boy, if this isn't God, I better quit.
If this isn't God, I don't know what is. And I know that next Sunday, we're going to experience the activity of God in a really cool and beautiful new way for us as a church. And so we're going to fill the balcony next Sunday. And so bring everybody you know, come and be a part of history making in North Park. We are so excited to be invited by God in participating in His movement and His activity in the neighborhood. And so,
yeah, my wife is in Boise, Idaho. That's her hometown, and her dad is getting a hip replacement, and she's been helping care for him, and that's going well. But she's flying back tomorrow because this next week we're getting ready for our combined service, and she goes, I'm not going to miss this for the world. So if my wife can fly back from Idaho, you can come.
That's right.
Across town from Point Loma to North Park for our it's going to be historic. It's going to be historic.
I love it.
Don't miss it.
So here's the plan. We're going to meet at 10 o'clock for a coffee mingle with your folks and our folks. So come at 10. We're going to have coffee, donuts, all the good stuff to start your new year off right. And then 10:30, the gathering's going to start. And it's just going to be an incredible time. So check the website for all the details, parking, and all that sort of stuff. And we cannot wait to see you there. Makers Church, North Park Baptist, come together.
And he's going to be preaching.
And I'm going to be preaching.
And we're going to have both the worship teams doing something together. So it's going to be so exciting.
Absolutely. So we cannot wait to see you guys there. God bless you.
God bless you.
All right, hey guys, I know that there's so many questions about how this is all going to unfold. And so I just want to answer a couple Q&A questions, and hopefully this will put some of you at ease. It just actually give some more clarity to what's going on. So first question is, will we still be Makers Church? Absolutely. We're still Makers Church. We're moving into a new home with some new folks, and we're going to see what unfolds as it goes. But we're absolutely still Makers Church. We're going to continue to be Makers Church as we continue on. Are Makers pastors leaving? No, we're not going anywhere. Our staff is staying the same. North Park Baptist staff is going to stay the same during this dating season, and we'll figure out what the future looks like as time goes on. But we're here to stay. We're here. We're committed to the calling that God's placed on us to be a church in the city and to keep going on into the future. Can can we renovate? What will happen with the building? The building needs some love. It's an old building, and we can't wait to dream up how we can all partner together to bring some new life into different parts of the building. So yeah, we can. That will happen later, not immediately, but yeah, it's an open canvas and something new to dream up together. Is there kids programming? Great question. Yes, we're bringing our kids programming to North Park Baptist starting next week. So our same kids ministry that we've been doing is going to keep going on. Kayla's going to do an awesome job making the new place a home for our families as we endeavor in this together. Who will be speaking on Sundays? Well, me, Mark, Shalise, Pastor Glenn. We're going to be on rotation as we see fit. The plan for now is to stick with our plan that we've already had in place for 2019 and with a couple adaptations to it as we go on. And our worship teams are going to blend together, and we're going to take some of what they do on their Sundays and incorporate it into what we do. But it's going to be overall, it's going to be a fairly similar Makers Church experience in a new home. And how can we best show our support as we step into this transition? I think that is a great question. So whoever asked that question and sent it to me, God bless you. We want to show up with open hands and open hearts. And we want to step into this new relationship with our authentic, true selves, but with our best selves. And that we can be great guests in this home as we're being welcomed in, and that we would just go above and beyond in our show of generosity, and that it would just be that we just be us, that we just be our normal Makers Church that we are. And so we're going to show up, we're going to be ourselves, and we're going to gracefully wrap up everybody in our arms that is there. And so we cannot wait to do that together. We'll see you then. Hey, here's a couple things that are upcoming that we don't want you to miss. On January 13th, we're going to have a Made to Make event on poetry. Gil is going to be leading that. It's going to be awesome. It's from 3 to 5 p.m. You can register on the website, and we would love for you, if you've never done poetry or if you're an avid poet, to show up and dream up together just some amazing creative pieces that maybe perhaps could be shared in different ways on video or at church on a Sunday. But we'd love for you to be at that. It'd be great. Also, we have FPU launching when we launch community groups in January. Financial Peace University is an awesome, awesome, awesome workshop format for you to find financial freedom in your life. And we would love for you to find that freedom that comes through these biblical principles that are worked out throughout this course. And it's 13 weeks, and we'd love for you to be there and start 2019 out in a really positive, strong way financially. And so you can find all the information at our website and register for that. And you can watch this film to get some more info on what it is.
Financial peace. We all want it. For a while, I didn't have it. 20 years ago, I hit rock bottom. I lost just about everything. I turned to God for help, and I learned how to handle money His way. As you can imagine, it worked. That's why I started Financial Peace University, because God's ways work. Whether you're in over your head or you're doing okay right now, if you bring home $10,000 or $10 million, if you're 21 or 61, we all need a plan. Millions of people have been through Financial Peace University. They have success stories of their own. They've learned how to get rid of debt, prepare for generations to come, and give like crazy. Your success story, your financial peace is up to you. Now is your time. It's time to take control of your money. It's time to get ready for what God has for you. It's time for financial peace.
Hey, next week, our first Sunday together at North Park Baptist Church, we are starting a new series. It's called New Year, New You. We know that this time of year, it's all about setting resolutions, and that's a great thing. But so many times the resolutions we set only help ourselves. And so this series is all about what can we do that would make a difference not in our lives, but in somebody else's life. And we would love for you to join us as we open this conversation. We'll see you there together.
You are listening to the Makers Church podcast. For more information about our community, please visit makerschurch.org.